thequarium.com, where technology comes to talk.
This is Bibliotech for Monday, November 7th, 2011, episode number 8. Dude, where's my privacy? Hello and welcome to Bibliotech, the audio podcast that discusses all things digital technology at our libraries. I'm the host, your very own nano nerd, Kahan B, and today marks the 8th episode of this amazing podcast. We are back in action from a 2-week hiatus, with myself mostly meandering in the picturesque Adirondack region of New York State for a well-deserved vacation. And do we have a very exciting couple of shows coming up with some very top-notch guests, one of whom will be joining us tonight to talk about privacy issues in the wake of the Amazon Overdrive Kindle compatibility launch. But first, let me introduce my two buds, the usual cast of characters. On my virtual left is information services librarian Aaron Anderson, whose blog can be found at www.aaronandersononline.com. That's Aaron spelled E-R-I-N. Hello, Aaron.
Hi there. Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
And how was your time off the last 2 weeks?
Oh, pretty busy. You know, I work 6 days a week, so I'm pretty busy.
Nothing special.
Although I did something really cool today.
Okay.
I went to the Ontario Media Showcase. This was my first time where I helped select for my library media items, and it was really interesting.
Okay. Like what sort of stuff are we talking here?
DVDs, basically.
Okay.
You can also select, like, buy things to stream, but my library is not doing that just yet. But yeah, it was very, very good.
Anything else, or?
Other than work, no, nothing really right now.
Okay, cool. And on my virtual right is coordinator of virtual services, Mr. Doug Myrams. Hello, Douglas.
Hello.
Hello. And how's your two-week time off?
Well, beyond picking up the slack from you being off for the 2 weeks.
Yes, apparently a lot of clients were asking for me. That's what everyone was telling me today.
Where's the guy?
Where's
the guy
dude?
with the beard?
The dude with the goatee.
With the beard?
Yeah, that's what a lot of clients, seriously, they come in, they're like, who's the guy with the goatee again?
Yeah.
Can't remember his funny name or whatever. But so my time off was interesting. Just to let everyone know, where I was in Lake Placid, New York, and we totally missed the huge snowstorm that rocked through the eastern seaboard. Albany, New York got a foot of snow, I think. In fact, most days I was literally in a t-shirt there. It was mainly sunny most days for us, which was a welcome surprise because often it is overcast there because of the mountains. No colors on the trees because Hurricane Irene basically knocked out all of the leaves before they had a chance to turn back in August, I think that was, right? The Hurricane Irene? Can't remember now, but I pulled my back very badly the last couple of days there, so that was no fun. Seemed to have caught a throat bug there as well, very sore throat tonight, and basically came back sadly with no gadgets. Everyone, as soon as I came back to work today, because usually when I go away to the States, right, I always come back with some fun toys, and there was like literally nothing for me to buy. I noticed Aaron went offline. I allocated a small budget for toys and walked around several Best Buys and Targets, and literally there was nothing to buy. My iPhone does it all. So I'd walk up to something and it's like, yeah, my phone does it. Yep, my phone does it, and so on. So literally nothing to buy. At least my credit cards were not slammed this time around, right, Doug?
Always good. Always good. the significant other always likes that.
Yeah. You remember during my last trip to Virginia Beach back in the summer, I bought the GoPro camera, the HD video camera that you can mount on anything. Like you got a head strap and you can mount it on a helmet and stuff like that. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually used it on this trip. I mounted it on I bought the windshield mount, and it was awesome. Really, really great footage. For those of you who don't know the Adirondack region very well, it's very mountainous, very picturesque. Came back with lots of footage. So,
and you can come to our class tomorrow and play with the video.
Yes. We have a Final Cut video editing workshop tomorrow, so I'm going to actually use some of the footage from the GoPro. So, and I am very happy to announce our guest for this episode. She is no stranger to libraries, and in fact has been working in libraries for the past 14 years. She is the assistant director for the San Rafael Public Library in California, a 2-library system serving a population of 60,000 people. She also is the personality behind the well-known library blog called Librarian in Black. She was named a Library Journal Mover and Shaker as a trend spotter in 2009. She speaks internationally at live and online events for libraries and other institutions. She is a very big technology nerd, and she believes in the power of libraries to change lives. She is Sarah Houghton. Welcome to Bibliotech, Sarah.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Very nice having you. We actually share a couple of things in common. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, what do we share in common?
A lot of people at my system actually call me the librarian in black because apparently that's all I seem to wear, and I think Doug can corroborate that.
Actually, It looks like all of us tonight. Yeah?
Yes, I'm sporting the black. And secondly, I love using the word unacceptable. Love the usage of the word in your now famous 10-minute video rant on the Amazon Overdrive launch that garnered lots of interest.
Indeed, It did.
And we are going to be talking about that issue tonight with you. So before we get into the questions, is there anything you want to briefly say about yourself that I didn't include in the bio? Or
as of this week, I'm acting director at my library after a surprise resignation. So that's a little different. But other than that, I just want to kind of do a little disclaimer that anything that I say on this podcast solely represents my views and not the views of my institution, my library, or my city.
Absolutely. We have a similar disclaimer on the dequarium.com website where I say, basically the views of podcasters are their own and do not reflect those of any employer. So yeah, that's fine. Basically, I reached out to you because of the 10-minute video rant that you did. Would you like to share with the audience exactly what the rant was about, just to start off?
Yeah. So as soon as Amazon and Overdrive had announced their partnership to allow lending of some of the library's ebooks on Kindle, everybody got really excited, and we were all kind of waiting with bated breath for it to come out. And after it came out, a lot of us had concerns, but I found myself not being able to articulate them very well without devolving into just a litany of curses and yelling and screaming and bad things. So I had to kind of ponder it for a really long time before I was able to kind of develop my thoughts into a tighter package. And I had tried recording that video probably 20 times and over a couple of weeks. And every time it would devolve into cursing. And so I just decided that, all right, I'm just going to do it because I was at Internet Librarian in Monterey. I had talked with some friends that day about the issue. And they're like, no, you got to post something. People will listen. And I just decided, all right, as soon as it starts devolving into cursing, then I'll stop. I'll just stop talking. And that's pretty much what happened. Yeah.
Now, you did a couple of attempts at the video. It was actually pulled initially?
It was initially pulled. I had it up on YouTube, not for very long at all. And it was pulled down without an explanation for the reasoning or who had requested it to be pulled. But I'll give you 2 guesses.
Yes. So September 21st, that was the announcement day by Overdrive announcing the Amazon Kindle compatibility launch. Like generally, what was the initial reaction by libraries and librarians as far as regarding this announcement?
I think generally giddy excitement and just that kind of like, oh, finally reaction, because we'd been waiting so long and we kept having to tell people, well, yeah, this will work on any device. Oh, except for Kindles. And so many people had Kindles. It really was a bad PR thing for us. And there are still a lot of people who don't know that the Kindle compatibility is in place and still believe that their Kindles won't work with library ebooks. So I think it was just general, hurrah, yay, let's get those now. Let's start advertising it. Woohoo. That's what I kept hearing. And I'm always a little more tentative when stuff like this comes out because a lot of times the details about launch and privacy and things just aren't released until the product is released. And that was what happened with this.
So before I ask Doug and Aaron if they want to get in at this point, but was there any sort of skepticism right from the start? Like what were some of the stuff that your colleagues were telling you about this? Like aside from the giddy excitement, was there any skepticism at all about this?
There was a really great blog post done by Bobby Newman about it, asking a whole bunch of really good questions and just saying like, hold on, people, hold your horses. Let's think about this. And Gary Price also did a great post on InfoDocket with a series of very, very directed privacy questions that he had been sending in to both Amazon and Overdrive and not getting a real response. And I think, there was some stepping back, some skepticism, but generally not by people necessarily in positions of power or influence in their organizations. And so just in general, people were just like happy because they finally had that Kindle compatibility.
Did you guys want to get in or?
Well, I mean, we're broadcasting from Canada, the three of us. We don't yet have that issue yet, but we know that from our clients' point of view, they are continually coming to us, and in fact, as they're actually buying Kindles so regularly now here in Canadian stores, and unfortunately, the Canadian stores are saying the same thing to them, that yes, you have it, you can buy this Kindle and you can get the books from your public library. So there's a lot of misinformation right across the board.
And actually, Doug mentioned, so we don't yet have the Kindle compatibility that's restricted to U.S. residents only. So can you describe the process for our international listeners, exactly how a client checks out a Kindle compatible ebook via Overdrive? So like, how does it all work, and which part of the whole process concerns you the most?
Okay, I will first say that I think it's the smoothest ebook checkout process on any device. And so right there, I think that's great for the user because, I mean, we all know it's a horribly clunky and nasty software update laden.
I've been very critical of the whole Overdrive system right from the get-go. I find it very overly complex for most of our clients. It
is. So with this, it's you find the book that you want, and as you're adding it to your cart, you can choose Kindle format as one of the choices. Not for all of the ebooks. That's really important. It's not for all of the ones that you've purchased, but a fair percentage of them, and you basically add it to your cart. And as you go to check out, usually you would say download or whatever at that point, but it's send to my Kindle. Oh, okay. And then you log in with your Amazon credentials, and obviously Amazon knows what your Kindle is, where your Kindle is, or what your account information is. And with pretty much 2 clicks at that point, the ebook is synced wirelessly onto your Kindle or your Kindle app. It's in your account and ready to go. So it's smooth. Really smooth, really fast. It's the only thing that really kind of beams the book to your device as opposed to the kind of download and then transfer model that we have with almost everything else. So I think in that regard, I'd love to see that happen on more of our devices, and it will in time. So you also asked what are my concerns?
Yes.
So I have two. The first is the more minor concern, but it's that Amazon, when your book is 3 days away from being due or going to expire, you get an email saying, "Hey, you can buy this book because it's going to expire." Or you could check it out from your library again. Offered as kind of like a second thing. And there's a big buy this book button. And it's basically using the library as a way to market materials to people. And I'm really uncomfortable with that. A lot of, I know in California, at least, a lot of cities and counties have rules prohibiting us from promoting a company or marketing or using patron contact info as a way to market anything. And I think that this steps very dangerously close to that line. And even if it didn't, I just don't think I'm very comfortable with that. And then you get a second duplicate email when your book does expire, again, saying, you can buy this book, with a big link. And I'm just not comfortable with that because I feel like it's misusing library contact information. And I'm sure our customers are mostly just used to that because it's a company and they're used to Amazon stuff. But now there's an association with the library and almost like an implied endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of that too, right? Like I'm a Mac user, so I buy a lot of stuff off of iTunes. So I'm trusting Apple with my credit card info, and I do buy a lot of stuff off of Amazon. And once again, I'm trusting Amazon also with that very same information. So my third point, like in your video rant, you speak of the gross violations of our intellectual freedoms and privacy. It seems like many companies know too much about us today. So some examples, include the usual culprits, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Foursquare check-ins even, and of course Amazon and Apple both offering the easy one-click purchase systems with the full records of the credit card info and purchase history. So do you feel that many clients are oblivious to their digital surroundings and just sacrificing privacy for convenience? Do you see that as an issue?
I do. And I mean, this is my bigger concern with the whole arrangement, which is now all of a sudden for the first time, a corporation has our users borrowing data, and our users aren't necessarily aware of that. And it's our job to tell them that this isn't like every other time you check out an item from the library, physical or digital. If you have a Kindle, it's different because now Amazon has a complete record of what you're borrowing in addition to what you're buying. And I think that a lot of library users do have an expectation that we keep their stuff confidential. And now we're not. And not only are we not, we're just not telling people that we're not. And that makes me really uncomfortable that this service just kind of started and nobody thought it was a big deal. And Overdrive didn't think it was a big enough deal to bargain that away with Amazon, to be like, no, dude, you can't do that. Privacy is really important to them. You really don't want to do this with the libraries. Don't mess with the librarians. Instead, they just were like, okay, sure. So I do think that people don't necessarily pay attention to all the data that they're sharing. And like you, I'm guilty of that too. I mean, there have been times where I've posted things like on vacation, I'm away, and then realized, oh, well, it's pretty easy to figure out where my address is, my home address is. So now somebody can come break into my house. And I do think we share without necessarily thinking about it as much.
Very good point. And actually, Doug knows this. Whenever I'm on vacation, so I was away for the last 2 weeks, right? I never ever tweet that I'm on vacation. I never on my Facebook mention that I'm on vacation. I was okay to talk about it tonight because obviously, I'm back from vacation. But that was you have a very, very good point there, is that we share much too much, I feel.
We do. And I think in terms of privacy or the right to read without recrimination, I think that those are things that the general person doesn't think about. Your average person on the street isn't thinking about that. But it's a core tenet of our profession to uphold that right. I think it's a cornerstone of a democracy or any other sort of non-totalitarian state.
Yeah.
And it really makes me nervous when librarians are so anxious to get content that they're willing to trade that away for a few ebooks. They're willing to just say, oh, well, screw the patron's privacy. We'll take the ebooks. That's great. It's worth it. And in this particular case, I personally don't think it was worth it. I think that this was kind of, given to us without a whole lot of warning or advance notice. And I really feel like in general, librarians have sadly fallen down in sticking up for this as something that is important going forward. It sets a really bad example for future digital content vendors that we would do business with, that, oh, sure, come and harvest all of our users' data. That's fine. We don't care. Because we do care. I just don't think we really thought about it before jumping in.
So my other question pertaining to this, so like, are we being socially conditioned to ignore our intellectual freedoms and privacy? With the likes of the Googles and the Facebooks and stuff like that. And should we, as librarians, should we be more proactive in informing and educating our clients that, you should really, really pay attention to certain things you do online? Do you think we're not being proactive enough as a profession?
I think some libraries are doing a really good job of educating users about personal data privacy. And I think that's a role that we fill really, really well, because we're very good at data. We're very good at technology. We're very good at knowing the risks that you might take by putting certain information out there about yourself or giving that away to people. And so I think it's a role we can fill. I don't think enough of us have done it, unfortunately. I know I teach an intro to Facebook class, and in that class, I do not make any judgment statements. I just say, here are the privacy settings. These are the things you need to look through on your own and decide what's important. But this is where they are for now. They might move next week because they keep doing that. But this is where they are now. Yeah. And it's just that kind of informing people and then letting them make an informed choice. Because right now, I think you're right. We've been conditioned to just not even think about it. And so many of us are willing to trade personal data, really important core personal data, for convenience or for the illusion of fame. And I think that's a very dangerous direction for a society to go. My cats are flipping out down here. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I got two myself, so. I have a little room divider that has like a little gap on the bottom, so I kind of stuff it with my bag. So there's one cat in particular that always loves to come in during our podcast. So did Aaron or Doug, did you have any questions for Sarah?
No, I was just going to agree. We've done similar programs with social media and such forth, but it's very hard to teach somebody about privacy. People don't want to know about privacy. They don't see it as a big issue. I know there's a local seniors club that Kahan and I both done presentations for. And when one of them asked me what I would like to do is to talk about next, and I talked about the whole issue of privacy, and they just don't.
And they get bored.
Yeah, they get bored because they don't see it as a need. And I mean, we've seen countless times people leave the personal information's up on the library computers at work, and it does take an opportunity. It is an opportunity to explain to them what they're doing, and how they can prevent what they're, data theft and such forth. But it is a really, really hard sell. Absolutely.
I was going to say, Doug, to add to that, I think people are just overwhelmed. You have to know everything about everything you're doing in order to protect yourself. And I feel like people they're disinterested because it's so much to take in. Facebook has their own privacy rules. Google Plus has their own privacy rules. Like, it doesn't matter where you are, you got to learn every single thing. And when you're already trying to learn a technology, I think that people just get overwhelmed, so they just opt out of knowing about it and hope for the best. I would just add to that what Doug was saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because it is important. And it's not, I totally agree with what Sarah was saying about how it's up to us to guide the user for them to make their own informed decisions. So you help them find where that information is and then let them go from there. I think that's so important. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Thanks. I'm just glad we're having the conversation. I mean, I've got a lot of flamey, trolly, nasty comments in response to the video on multiple sites. I mean, when I hit Slashdot, it was like the trolls came out of the woodwork. But, and a lot of people said, oh, this is too radical and no one cares about privacy. And, but there were a lot of really informed comments too, really people saying really smart stuff and having really good discussions, and also a chance where people who had thought that the library already tracked everything that they read and kept that forever and ever were able to find out, well, actually, we don't do that on purpose. And here's why we don't do it. So I'm just glad the conversation happened. And, I might be a little bit more on the radical fringe side of this position about, what we're doing. But, I don't mind kind of being the sacrificial lamb as long as it gets that conversation started and people start having an intelligent conversation about these issues. And maybe we'll come to some kind of, happy resolution or median where we can agree that our users' needs are being serviced and we can get the content that we want. Yeah.
I found the comments very generally speaking, the comments to the video on YouTube, overall, more negative stuff I found,
right.
But on your blog, I mean, there were definitely a lot more informed comments I found, so which was good. So it kind of balanced itself out, right?
Yeah, I mean, you always put yourself out there and you get called names. So I just stopped reading them at some point and asked people that I trusted, can you guys just watch what's being said and jump in there if someone says something that's incorrect or inaccurate, and just get that conversation to keep going. Because I just had to stop. I mean, I also, the day after I posted it, came down with a severe cold with a fever. And so I was unable to think clearly. And I didn't want to be posting when I had like 104 fever, because don't blog drunk, don't blog with a fever either.
Good life advice.
Yeah. I'm delirious. There's spiders on the ceiling and monkeys crawling out of the window, but that's all right. I'll just post a reply. It's okay.
Yeah. So you mentioned that clients are sent various emails notifying them of the expiry dates of loaned items and such, and clients are presented with the options to purchase the titles they borrow. Aaron, I believe even Bibliocommons includes the links to purchase Amazon titles straight through from the catalog, right? I think you mentioned that on one of our podcasts.
Yeah, what's funny about that is I did mention that. That was one of our first couple of podcasts,
very
I think.
early on. Yeah.
And I went
ago.
on my library's catalog, which uses Bibliocommons, and I can't find it anymore. So I'm not sure if Bibliocommons is still doing that. But
it's an option. I think you can turn it off.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, can't find it here. What would you like to purchase this item instead? Definitely that's a link. I know in the system where I was working, they explained what that button was for, saying that if I remember correctly, we've made a deal where we can use the front cover images of items to make our catalog a little bit more visually appealing, and in turn we have this button saying, would you like to buy it? But again, I haven't seen that on my system since. So, and
this all sort of ties into Sarah's point about us endorsing private corporations, right? I mean, and their products that they're selling. So, but what I wanted to ask specifically pertaining to this was, did Overdrive ever mention in any written documentation? So, like, was there like a user guide or a PDF file or something, anything that this would happen, that clients would be presented with options to purchase items from Amazon?
Not that I saw.
Mhm.
Their press releases were very vague and general before this launched, and it really did take the launch and then a whole bunch of us jumping in and borrowing stuff right away to see what would happen. I Looking back at some of what they've read, I think you could infer a certain amount of what we did see from things that they said, but they said them kind of sideways, so
Mhm.
that you really had to read between the lines to figure out what they were really saying. And so for that reason, like they would say, for example, users who take notes or annotate your library Kindle books can then keep those annotations and notes. Well, if you think about that, that means that there's also a record of what they borrowed, and that Kindle, that Amazon is keeping that. But that didn't necessarily, it should have triggered that thought in all of our heads, but it didn't. And they never came right out and said it. So yeah, the information that they put out ahead of time, they were sales pieces, marketing this new service. I think had they warned us that this was coming or said, this is what's going to happen, you can choose now to opt out if you want, I think that would have resonated a little bit more with us as a more honest business decision.
Yeah. So like, in my opinion, and you mentioned this in the video, the fact that both Overdrive and Amazon, they're businesses, right? They're for profit, but like, in my opinion, I think clearly Overdrive was the bigger, how shall we put it? I don't want to use the word villain, but sort of like the bad guy in all of this, because we deal specifically with Overdrive, right? Amazon clearly, their goal is to make money, right? They, their whole existence is to sell products, whether they're physical products or electronic versions of the products, but their whole existence is to make money. So I'm just very, very surprised with Overdrive. Do you feel that Overdrive should have sort of came through a little bit more stronger, honest about this whole thing?
I think that basically Overdrive sold us out. That's the nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
Their Overdrive is out to make money too. And this makes their product a lot more attractive if they're able to put ebooks on a Kindle, hugely more attractive.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, everything that they were doing to broker that deal. And I think I don't know what that was. I don't want to know what that was. I think,
cats are hungry.
They're kittens still, so I think that was actually my dinner that they just knocked off the counter onto the floor. Right. What was I talking about? Oh yes, Overdrive.
Yeah.
So I think that they Overdrive, I don't know what their business decision process was, but I think that they pretty much would have done whatever Amazon wanted just to get this to work. And I think that, letting them keep the data, letting them market the stuff, were just things that they blithely gave away. And the other thing that tells me that this was a deal that really shouldn't have been brokered was the fact that Overdrive isn't allowed to talk to us about the deal. And they say, well, ask Amazon. And here's the right department at Amazon to ask. None of us in the field have gotten a response from Amazon whatsoever to any of our questions.
You were mentioning 5 channels of communication trying to get your questions answered. And I believe Gary D. Price as well, right? He was getting the blind sides.
All of us. I know of dozens of people that have reached out, and even, reporters for library trade publications, members of representatives of groups of ALA here in the States, nothing. Amazon's not talking to us at all. And so for Amazon, for Overdrive to agree to do a deal they can't talk about, as long as they could refer them to a company that's not even going to talk to us anyway, is basically a totally blind deal. We can't even get details about what's being kept about our users borrowing. Can they choose to scrub the data if they want to? We can't get answers to any of that. And that to me is really, really shady. And I think Overdrive didn't stick up for us enough in trying to broker the deal, didn't stick up for the core values that they knew we have. And if they're really that into libraries and love us as much as they say they do on their blogs, I would think that they would know that and be aware. So it makes me sad. I'm not horribly surprised, but I would really like to see them, Kat, I would like to see them try to make this right, you know, and I think that they can. If they come back honestly, I think that they can work to make this right.
And that kind of ties in a moment or two. I'm going to ask you about the recent passing of the Reader Privacy Act in your state of California there. But when I was traveling to the Adirondacks, as I mentioned, I went into several Best Buys, and I just wanted to get a general sense from the Best Buy associates in the various stores, like which e-readers are the most populars, right? And they all basically looked at me and they're like, dude, you know, like there's only one, like Kindle, man, like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like there's the Nook and there's all the various other readers, but you know, the sales guys basically made it sound like, you know, they're nothing, right? So I agree with what you were saying earlier about Overdrive. I think kind of needed to have the Kindle compatibility to sort of make their offering complete to libraries.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it makes their product more attractive. And currently, honestly, they have a monopoly on the market already. And so this just solidifies that monopoly and puts them in a position where libraries are investing, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in content that they don't even own. We license it, you know, we walk away, we lose everything. So they've got a monopoly. They really do have us over a barrel for the foreseeable future until a competition, you know, comes out with a competing model that's more open and more in tune with our values, I guess.
Doug, Aaron, did you guys have any questions?
No, absolutely. I mean, we in Ontario, I mean, that's what we got. We have Overdrive, and we have a whole bunch of clients in the same situation as your clients were in before September, clamoring for us to get on that board too. And we're just watching you guys and trying to figure out, you know, knowing that whatever deals you guys make in the stateside, we just don't have the push. We just don't have the national organizations like you guys do that can push back. So yeah, we're just waiting for the steamroller.
Well, even here in the States, though, honestly, the organizations aren't pushing back.
Yeah.
It's individuals and individual libraries. And I think that's right now where we're all at in every country, for whatever reason.
And I agree with what you were saying in the video that there's strength in numbers, right? So if we all sort of, you know, do our part and contact these people and let them know exactly, you know, that we're ticked off about all of this, I think it would make all the difference in the world. But there needs to be like a concerted effort.
There does. I mean, I just think about how much of a tizzy we got into when HarperCollins did the whole 26, you know, circulations and then your book explodes kind of thing. I mean, and just how pissed off people were. And they really, you know, people jumped on that and they were writing about it and talking about it and calling HarperCollins, calling Overdrive, complain. And that sucked. And it was bad and it was worth being vocal about. This is like 100,000 times worse to me. And yet you're not getting that same level of reaction from people. And it's hard for me to understand why it's so different, why this isn't as much of a hot button issue. And I think part of it is we're just so happy to have something that works on the Kindle. We'll take anything. We don't care. You can, you know, steal our firstborn. We don't care. Just whatever. Just give us the Kindle books. And I feel like that's the difference. And unfortunately, you know, we're just so greedy for content. It's making us not think real clearly, I think. I
mean, admittedly, the whole HarperCollins 26, checkout thing. I mean, that like it infuriated me because, being a strong advocate for, digital rights and stuff like that. And I just, we have all this technology and we're restricting it to, an ebook, which, doesn't physically get damaged or anything like that. We're restricting it to 26 checkouts. I mean, the whole thing was just so ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it's artificially imposing all the weaknesses of a physical format on the digital format.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to ask you about was the recent passing of the Reader Privacy Act that you mentioned in the video. So I did a little bit searching on that today. Apparently, it's going to become law. It isn't law yet, I believe. I think it's going to become law of the land in California on January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you help us understand how all of this will play out? The Reader Privacy Act, how the whole thing's going to play out with this Overdrive Amazon mess that we have on our hands.
Yeah. Basically, the act extends the protection that currently exists for a library patron's borrowing records as confidential information, where you have to have a subpoena or warrant to get it, and extends that to digital borrowing as well. And the same with bookstores. So ebook stores, like getting ebooks for your Kindle, buying them through Amazon or buying them through the Apple bookstore, whatever, that's all protected as well. So it's whatever your borrowing, reading, buying habits are, that's protected information that belongs to you and you alone. And I really get the sense that by Amazon kind of inserting itself between the relationship that a library's borrowing service has with a person, that there, and I'm not in any way a legal expert at all, but it seems to me like there's potential there for this to be kind of bleeding over into the gray area of what would be okay under this new law, because you now have a company tracking information from somebody and having that information other than the place where the transaction was initially initiated. So, in theory, the act just now applies to Amazon's knowledge of the user's borrowing habits, just like it would apply to the library's knowledge of the user's borrowing habits, that it's still protected data. But I don't know if that's true. And what we've seen in the past with Amazon is they're kind of more than happy to just give out people's information when law enforcement comes knocking, with or without any kind of court order. So, I think it probably doesn't violate it, but it could. And I'd really love to have, someone who actually knows the law well enough to weigh in and say, is this shady or not?
Fair enough. I'm going to let Erin ask her question because I feel like I'm hogging all of the questions here for Sarah. So well, actually, I'll let Erin go ahead.
The first part was kind of already answered. The initial question was, what can librarians and libraries do to encourage or demand transparency from Amazon with regards to, via Overdrive, with regards to storage and usage of private information? But this podcast is a good start, and your YouTube video and blog. Is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't already discussed about that?
I think as long as you're contacting your Overdrive representative, no matter what country you're living in, and just expressing concern about this, asking questions, trying to get answers, even if we know they're not going to answer, at least they're still hearing from people that we want answers.
Yeah.
And letting them know that it's kind of not cool that they can't give us answers. And then also contacting Amazon directly, either as a library staff person or as a library user, as a resident. I think those two different venues for contacting are both useful.
And what do you think about a public battle between, libraries and Amazon, let's say the end person or the end company, Do you think that that would make libraries look even worse than we already do? And would this negative reputation that this would foster be? What do you think about that? Or should we not care because the user's privacy is paramount and that's just the end of it? It doesn't matter what libraries appear in media?
I think it's an interesting question. I think that in almost every media smackdown between libraries and anybody else, people just tend to side with the libraries because we're kind of cool and people like us. And we're usually right.
Yeah.
There's that too, that funny little detail. But I think that there's the potential for us to come off as out of touch or curmudgeonly or not interested in providing new hip content. There's that danger of that angle being taken.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, what I've seen in most of the media that's picked this up has been more along the lines of, whoa, they're trying to fight for our privacy just like they did when the Patriot Act came out in the States. They're jumping on board and getting angry again. Maybe we should pay attention. So I think in this particular case, I think that it's okay for us to have a public battle. I would almost invite it. I think it would be a good thing for Amazon to actually have to answer some of our questions. That'd be great. But there is always the potential for the media to take a certain slant or angle, and you can't control that. All you can do is control what you do say and control your message and try to keep that conversation going.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, sorry, I didn't have this in my notes, but do you think Amazon, they're such a large player and clearly the dominant one in this ordeal? Do you think that information will ever be publicized?
You mean like the answers to all the stuff that we've been asking them?
Yeah. Do you think that will, if we push back, is there a hope that this will be done? Do you know? Or what's your gut feeling on that?
I have a hope. I have a gut feeling. Yeah. I would have to wager that there are probably quite a few Amazon marketing people working really hard with Overdrive to figure out how to, formulate a good response and put some positive spin on this. Overdrive is none too pleased with me at present, and that's okay. Again, that's all right. I don't mind if they don't like me. There's already 3 other library vendors that won't speak to me, so I can just add a 4th. Fine. It's all right.
Yeah.
But it's I think that we do have hope of getting answers to those questions. And honestly, I don't think we should stop asking until we do. These are core critical issues about what's happening to library borrower data. And they're not hard questions. They really aren't that difficult to answer. So I think we will see answers. I would have expected to get them by now, but things move slowly in a corporation. So I'll give them another month and then I'll start getting mad again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, because we had talked about this issue before, I think the last couple of podcasts, and I think it was me that had said that, the library is an agent of trust. And you said it so well all throughout this podcast, but I thought I would just add that actual sentence in that, it's so important for us to be vocal, no matter what, I guess, in this case, and as an agent of trust for the community.
Mm-hmm.
We are. They do trust us. They trust that we will be honest with them and straight with them and unbiased with them. And I think all of us try to do that every single day.
So what are your thoughts of the more recent announcement regarding the Amazon Kindle Owners Lending Library, by which Kindle owners that also subscribe to the $79 Prime memberships can download 1 book per month? Is this a trend? Is this trend something that concerns you because it bypasses libraries altogether? So, what are your thoughts about that?
No, in its current form, it doesn't concern me at all. I don't think it's as much of a threat as people had initially feared. I had thought that they would come out with something a lot more content-rich and flashy, and they didn't. So, it's only a very small selection of books. You only get 1 a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's, something that you have to have a Prime membership to use. So it's just, there's a lot of limiting factors that don't make it very attractive. But when it first got announced, like it just broken, Jason Griffey and I had this long Twitter conversation back and forth because I would just say, it's crap. And he would say, but they're just testing the waters.
Yeah,
this is their opening volley. They're going to start adding content, adding features, and then you won't have to have a Prime membership. You'll just pay $5 a month or whatever, and this will happen, and this will. So I think, he makes good points. I think this is just their opening volley. And so as it develops, I think it becomes a much more attractive and interesting model that'll get more people using it. Do I think it's a threat to libraries? Not really. Just as, when ebooks first came out, it's a threat to libraries. Well, then libraries had ebooks and we found a way to provide that service too. I think moving from an ownership model to a streaming model, which is functionally all this isn't that unique to books. We're facing that with music and with video too. And that's the thing that we need to pay most attention to in our field, is this complete shift away from an expectation of ownership of content to streaming access to content. And where is the library's role in that equation, regardless of the media type? And there is a place for us, but I think that's something we need to articulate well and have companies create services, or have us negotiate contracts and services with the vendors directly. But I'm not too worried yet. People love us. They still like using our stuff for free. Yeah. Free ebooks are always going to beat the pants off of something you got to pay for.
And Doug and I, we discuss this a lot. The whole issue of the ownership, so I'll be honest. before the Kindle was being sold in Canada, what I did was I created a dummy American account, and I ended up purchasing about 20 titles using the dummy account. And then the Kindle stuff came to Canada. Then obviously I was purchasing using my real legitimate account. And then when I tried to transfer the content from the dummy account to the real account, it wouldn't let me. So there's that whole issue of, I bought these titles on Amazon and I don't have ownership of these titles. And I just find it very interesting that that's the sort of direction that we're going in. And you were just speaking to that a moment ago about the whole ownership issue of digital content.
Right. I think people are starting to get used to streaming as a positive model and a preferred model in many cases. Netflix is a really prime example. So Spotify or RDO, we're just getting used to that. And I think there's no reason that model doesn't transfer to books. I think people just want to get the content and get out. And in some cases, they want to have a physical object or some special edition or something, which is great. But I just think that whole streaming transition is going to be what we're going to see over the next 5 years and less. Over the next year or 2 years, be really the dominant motivating factor in changes to library digital services. And I'm excited because I think there's a lot of room for growth there. But I'm also a little concerned because we're so slow to respond. I hope we can jump on board in time this time instead of being a little late to the ball game.
So the whole ebook craze, passing fad or something that libraries really need to embrace and promote?
Ebooks in general, I think we need to embrace and promote them, but we need to embrace and promote models that work for us and that work for our customers. We need to pick things that people can access on the device of their choosing, that aren't locked down with cumbersome digital rights management, that don't require people to give away their personal data or get advertised to. I think we can enforce these positive models as an alternative, but it's not a craze. We need to pay attention. Books are still important, and these are books. It's just a different media, but they're still books, and books are going to be important for a long time.
Doug, Aaron, any questions before I hit the very closing question? So Sarah can go and eat dinner.
Maybe.
Maybe. It could be on the floor right now for all we know, right?
No, I was just going to, we're looking at the whole issue of streaming as well.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that here. How do we get ourselves into that conversation, or actually build the platforms that we can build ourselves so that we can supply because you and I, Kay, and Aaron as well, we've had that conversation about can we supply our own ebooks to our clients?
Mm-hmm.
What are the issues with that? Can we become a local version of Lulu for our clients? Is there enough, writer community in our little areas that we can supply that? Can we do it as a group?
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people want the latest James Patterson and the latest, Millennium Trilogy books, right? So,
and
I'm
the good thing
all
is that some of those authors are not buying into the big model either.
Yeah.
They're selling their stuff by themselves.
Yeah.
So,
and actually, one of the topics that I was wanting to discuss, if we didn't have Sarah on this podcast, was the whole issue of Amazon now signing exclusive deals with authors. I don't know, Sarah, if you heard about this.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
it's intriguing. I mean, it's one more way for Amazon to capture that piece of the market. And they've got such a firm grasp on the rest of the market process that this would kind of be that final piece. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they started making their own paper, like Amazon branded paper, then that would give them another way to make money. But yeah.
Might be the only way to get them in Canada if we just sell them our resources.
Nice. Yeah. There you go. We could do a little swap, We'll give you dead trees. Come on.
So the closing question, then we'll call it quits for this episode. Since the Overdrive Kindle compatibility service is US only for the time being, it's inevitable and only a matter of time that it'll be available in many other countries across the world. So what advice can you give your fellow international librarians in order to avoid what has happened in the US with this launch? Should libraries outright reject supplying Kindle books via Overdrive if the current system is in place? What are your thoughts about that?
The first thing I would do is if you're already an Overdrive customer, I would contact them, and just let them know that you have concerns about how this will be implemented in your country, and just let them know before they broker that deal that there are people paying attention and that they care, and then just raising awareness with local consortium or other groups of libraries, just to make sure that people know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And informing your customers, throughout the process of what's happening and what their choices are if it does launch, and being ready to answer those questions, because we were totally not ready to answer those questions when it first launched. So we were So we were kind of stuck in a real tricky spot of having to really respond on the fly. Do I think that libraries should reject Kindle books or Overdrive books overall on principle? Do I? Absolutely. Would I? Had I that level of control, I would. Mm-hmm. Like many libraries, we're part of a consortium with our ebook deal. Yeah. And so I might vote for our library to say, well, you know what, we don't want to be part of this anymore. But there are other libraries that can outvote me. And then that's what happens. So, and I know for a fact that's what's going to happen. But I personally, if I really did have that independent control to just walk away from Overdrive and just say, this is not a good investment of our dollars. We're investing in content and technology that doesn't work for us long term. Mm-hmm. I would do that. I don't think most people would. And I can see the arguments, definitely understand the arguments against walking away.
Yeah.
But it's a model that I feel is dangerous enough to our users' privacy and their ability to access content long term that it's just kind of one of those stands you got to take in life every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've discussed this on previous podcast where I don't know who mentioned it. It could have been me that mentioned it, but like Overdrive literally, is the only player in town right now when it comes to, there's the whole net library thing and all that, but realistically, Overdrive is the only player in town.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I know of at least one other library in California that did walk away and just will not do business with Overdrive because they don't want content that has DRM on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they just refuse. If it has DRM, we're not buying it.
Yeah.
And I applaud that library and their staff for doing that. And would that I could do that myself, maybe someday.
And on that note, I want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode. It's been very informative. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything you would like to plug before we sign off for the evening? Do you want to mention your website?
I'll plug Open Library, a great open ebook service that works really, really well. And a lot of it does not have DRM on it. And it's awesome. And it's a library of ebooks built by libraries from scanned copies of their physical items. And it's growing in leaps and bounds. And it's coordinated through the Internet Archive, which is an organization I trust to do the right thing with open access and open source. And I would say that's just something to take a look at as an alternative competing model.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic resource.
Now, what was the name of that again? I didn't quite catch that. It's
called Open Library.
Open Library. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll definitely check that out. Do you want to mention your website, Twitter handle? Sure.
Website's librarianinblack.net or .org.
Okay.
Or .info. And my Twitter, you got to buy all the domains.
Yes.
And my Twitter handle is the LIB for Librarian in Black.
Good. And do you want to mention your appearance on Tech News Today?
Sure. So tomorrow I get to be in the TWIT studios up in Petaluma, which is about a half an hour north of where I live here in San Rafael.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it does help. And I'm going to be one of the guests on Tech News Today tomorrow, which is I'm really thrilled. We had the host Tom Merritt come down and do a book reading for his latest book at our library last week. And that was a thrill to do that. And so now I get to go up there and play on his playground for a little while.
That's so good. Mention aquarium.com to Tom Merritt off air.
Okay.
Hey, we need all the plugs.
We got to do a road trip. I keep saying road trip. We got to do a road trip.
Internet Librarian is every year it's in Monterey, California, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Doug keeps talking about it. Maybe one year we'll rent the Volkswagen van and make a trek out there. What do you think, Doug?
Absolutely. Put a 3G Wi-Fi unit in the back, and
yes, I have a Verizon stick. I have a Virgin stick. And I'm thinking of getting AT&T as well. So
there you go.
So we'll be all wireless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you guys come out. I'll take you on a tour of the area and show you all the good stuff. So, yeah.
This has been so much fun. I want to thank Sarah Houghton once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Nice to meet y'all.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to let my two colleagues sign off for the evening.
This is Erin. Have a great night, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And good night from Doug.
And good night from Kahan. And I never plug myself, so I'm going to take the opportunity right now to give out my Twitter handle. So if anyone wants to send me some Twitter love, you can follow at IKayhan. That's IKayhan on the Twitter. And I'm going to bid you farewell for this episode. And folks, stay tuned for next episode because we're going to have another huge guest on episode 9. So for Sarah, Doug, and Aaron, this is Kahan signing off on Bibliotech for episode 8. Good night, everyone.